Okay, so next thing that we're going to do, we determined our patient's blood type, right? So we determined our patient's blood type. Let's just use that our patient's blood type is type A positive. And now your patient is going to undergo surgery, and you need to have some reserve blood on hand in case something bad happens to them during surgery. So we have to figure out what are the compatible blood types. And I know you're thinking, oh, I'll just memorize that chart. Cool. Good luck to you on that one. You can either try to memorize every compatible blood type, or you can actually understand it so that you can like write some stuff out. So understanding compatible blood types, things you want to think about is, wow, sorry, I was meant to be the head of my patient and it became really big, is you're going to have your patient, okay? So we have patient one, and then you're going to have a different donors. And you can make, I usually make a person, but you know, this time I'm just going to make bags of blood. Maybe that's a little easier. I'm going to make bags of blood, okay? So this is like donor number 1, donor number 2, donor number 3. And they'll have different blood types. So our patient's blood type, we're going to write down here, is A positive. And then you want to think about, okay, so when I say A positive blood, what does that mean? What do they have? So I'm going to write a G and I'm going to write a B here. Remember, the G is for our antigens. Remember, antigens. And the B is going to be for my antibody. It's basically so I don't have to write out antigen, antibody everywhere, okay? And hopefully you remember that A positive means I have A antigens and I have RH. Now here's where the other part of blood comes in handy. You're probably thinking, well, if antigen tells us our blood type, what's the purpose of knowing the antibody? The purpose of knowing the antibody is so that you understand what is monitoring blood for foreign invaders so that you don't give your patient the wrong blood and kill them. So here's where we want to put our antibodies. So remember, our antibody is opposite. So that's the anti-B antibody or B antibody. Maybe we should do this the right way, but anti-B. Okay. That's our patient stuff. Over here in our donors, let's just say we have, I don't know, A, B negative, we have A negative, and then we have O positive. Something like that. Just going to pick some different donors and we're going to test this out. I'm going to do one example. Maybe I'll do all 3. Depends on how much time. I'm going to cut my video a little bit shorter. So we want to think about when we're transferring blood from, from donor 1 into patient 1, what are we transferring and what are they recognizing? So the purpose of blood transfusion is you don't have enough red blood cells. If you don't have enough red blood cells, hopefully you know what happens. Remember, this whole thing back here that maybe you didn't watch, but you hopefully know. Oh, low red blood cell count right there. Low hemoglobin, low oxygen levels. So this is why you do the transfusion. Your patient doesn't have enough red blood cells for them to get enough oxygen around the body. So you need to transfuse blood because this process isn't happening fast enough. It's not going to happen fast enough for you to create new red blood cells to prevent death. So we have to give a transfusion of blood, which means we're taking our red blood cells, and that also means that this patient has red blood cells, but inside there's those soldiers or those bouncers. Remember, that's our antibodies. So in this case, our B was purple. So we're going to have these, purple kind of triangular shaped antibodies. And on our red blood cell, we're going to have these little round antigens that are kind of darker red color. And you're also going to have the RH antigen, which remember was kind of like a box in yellow. So when we are transferring from our donor to our patient, we have to think about our red blood cell because that's what's getting transferred in high quantities. And we have to think about, well, the antigen is on the red blood cell, and we have antibodies that are monitoring or circling our patient's blood, and those are our soldiers. Their job is to look for foreign invaders and destroy them. So we have to slip by the soldiers or by the bouncers by basically saying, hey, I'm part of the body. Don't kill me, okay? Don't get rid of me. So you have to make sure that you avoid those soldiers, those bouncers. Why am I saying a bouncer? Because I'm kind of thinking about like, just imagine you went to a nightclub and there's a guy that stands in front of the nightclub, checks your ID, but also says, well, you're allowed in or you're not allowed in. So the bouncer is going to check the ID that is on the red blood cell. Okay, remember the ID part is what is the antigens that are present. So to figure this out, for each of your donors, you're going to have to do your G and you're going to have to do your B. And you have to realize, is the G more important or is the B more important? The G is more important, right? Because it's the antigen that we're moving over. That's my ID card. I got to make sure my ID card lets me in to the patient's body. So I have to go through and say, well, AB negative is going to have A, is going to have B, and no RH, okay? That's why I put RH here and I put no RH. The antibodies, I'll let you figure that out. A negative has A and no RH. O positive has none and RH. And when I say none, it has no A or B. You could put A and B, none if you want to, or no A, no B. Or you could just put RH. Depends on how you view this, how you understand it, okay? So now we have to think about what thing is more important. So here I'm going to say no antibodies. Here I'm going to say B. And here I'm going to say A and B antibodies. I said you to fill it out, but I'll fill it out for you, okay? So again, we're going to start to think about if I'm going to do compatible blood types, what am I moving from my donor into my patient? And I have to make sure that I bypass my patient recognizing that as foreign. That's why you want to come in here and you maybe want to circle or highlight. Actually, yeah, let's use a highlighter here. Let's highlight. Oh, I need to check my antigens here. And I need to check them against something. So I need to check them against the patient's antibody, right? Just imagine the soldiers, the bouncers standing in front of the body saying, let me check your ID. If I recognize your ID as being bad, I'm going to destroy you. If I recognize your ID as being part of the body, I'm not going to destroy you. That's the idea. So we're going to see that, okay, here, let's go back and say, okay, A and B and no RH, but B and I have B here. That means I have to cross this one out. That's not a compatible match. Why? Right? This B antigen will be recognized by the soldier as being our enemy. It's going to clump or agglutinate together and it's going to kill your patient. So that's bad. Then I'm going to say, okay, A and B. Oh, A and B don't match. Perfect. So that's a possibility. Okay, so this is possible. Perfect. Then I have to go and I have to check this against this. So I have to check no RH here, and I have to check RH here. And remember what we said, okay? So like number one, oh, sorry. I remember I did this on the right way. Let me check my picture on my phone really quick. What did I do? So number one, we're gonna check here the antigen of the donor and the patient antibody. Those are going to be different. Okay. And then number two, you have to check RH. So you have to check RH. So if you're RH negative, what that means is only negative blood. If you're RH positive, what that means is you can have negative and positive blood, okay? Technically, you can do this in reverse, and if it will make it a lot easier by just saying, well, my patient is RH positive, so I can have any negative or positive blood. So actually all those, this negative and this positive, they're all compatible. If you have an RH negative person over here, you just start crossing out all the positive blood types, and then it kind of helps you eliminate, okay? So we did that. So now we're going to go back to A negative, right? And we're going to look at A positive. So remember, A positive can accept anything. So, all right, cool. So I can say that my A negative is a compatible blood type. So perfect. I'm going to put that bag in my cart and I'm going to take it over to my patient. Like I can do that transfusion. And I can do number 3 here where I see, oh, I have no antigens here. Perfect. It doesn't matter. I have no antigens. So I'm going to be completely invisible, right? Totally invisible to the bouncers and the soldiers. They recognize me as being okay, and they're just going to let me pass. So this one might be okay. The next thing we have to check is, remember, a positive. Oh, we have 2 positives. That's okay too. So that means this one is also a possible donor. Remember, if you have a positive blood type, Rh positive blood type, then you can get blood from both positive and negative blood types, okay? If you're still having a hard time with that, draw it out and the agglutination process so you understand. What this essentially means is if this is what our red blood cell looks like with Rh, here, this one is just going to look like this, like O positive will simply have these yellow things on it. And since the yellow thing has already been recognized by my body, I don't see that as being foreign. So I don't need to take care of it. You're showing your ID card to somebody who recognizes that ID card as being okay. If I have negative Rh negative blood, that means I don't have this antigen on the surface. And that's okay here too, because I've seen that antigen. If I don't see the antigen, I'm not worried about that. It's the opposite, where if you've never ever seen that ID card before, you're going to get into trouble. Okay. Why? Well, let me redo this and let's pick a new patient and we'll pick a couple new blood types. We'll just pick one new blood type here. And I'll just like erase all this stuff. Let's just pick one new blood type, okay? In this case, we're going to do blood type B negative. And I'm just going to say I have B positive blood. Because a lot of you are going to say, well, my blood type is B, so I can have all B blood. Maybe, maybe not. Now I have to go back and do my antigens here. So this is no RH right there. And over here, I'm going to do my G and my B again. So my antigen is B and RH. My antibodies are A. And I'm simply going to, once again, highlight, okay, I have to check this against this and against this, okay? So everything looks good, except for the fact that this is negative and this is positive. So this is what's going to happen if you do this, because I know a lot of you kind of didn't understand this whole idea. So that's what my red blood cell looks like in my body. And these are what the red blood cells look like. Well, actually, this is B. So I have to erase all that. Remember, these were triangles. And I have to actually change my, oh, I have to change all this. Man, that actually sucks. I just totally did this all wrong. I hope you're all paying attention to that. Let me do this again, okay? So my patient is going to be B negative. So that means I have the B antigen and the anti-A antibody right there. So my blood cell looks like this. I'm just going to have these little purple triangles surrounding. And that's it. And my bouncer is going to look for that round, kind of dark red antigen. If my donor over here is B positive, yes, I have my B antigen, I have my RH antigen, and I have my anti-A antibody. If you don't like just writing A, just write anti-A antibody like that, okay? So we see that B and A don't match. That's perfect. But now we have the problem that we have this RH, and that RH has never been seen by the body before, okay? So exposure 1 is going to result in the body creating new antibodies now. So now I have those RH antibodies, because basically this is the way that I was talking about in office hours is, imagine you went to the club and you're the dick at the club. You're the one who vomited everywhere, maybe you peed everywhere, maybe you just like destroyed the whole club. The bouncers are pretty much going to tell you, like, don't ever show your face here again. They're going to take a picture of your face, they're going to put it on the wall and be like, don't ever show your face here again because we're going to kick you out. And that's essentially what RH has done. RH has said, I'm not good for your body. Now I need something. Now I need to make sure that the body recognizes that as not being good for the body. So next time I see it, I'm going to try to get rid of it. So exposure 1, we create antibodies. Okay. During exposure 2, that means I'm going to give this patient B positive blood one more time. Now you have the antibodies. So as soon as these red blood cells enter the body with that RH antigen present, what's going to happen is those antibodies you previously created are going to attach together and they clump or they agglutinate, okay? And that it's the second exposure that's going to cause your patient to die. So sometimes people say, well, it's okay, I'll just give B positive blood to this person and it's their first exposure. But how do you know it's their first exposure? You won't know it's their first exposure. So it's better safe than sorry, and you lose your nursing license. It's better for you to actually make sure by giving them negative blood instead of any positive blood, okay? So this is how you can determine blood type compatibilities. Yes, there's a chart, or you can figure it out because you won't have a chart always handy. So you're going to have to think, what's the antigen, what's the antibody, can I give this? Okay, if you do this over and over again, it becomes much quicker, and you just have to think about it for a minute instead of trying to pull up that chart. All right, we're going to talk about clotting versus clumping next.